Also letting you know ahead of that that John Conyers, the congressman who has been charged with making improper statements to and advances on women in his staff over the years, has said that it's not true. I have long been and continue to be a fierce advocate for equality in the workplace. I fully support the rights of employees who believe that they have been harassed or discriminated against to assert claims against their employers. That said, it's important to recognize that the mere making of an allegation does not mean it's true. He goes on to say that this case, it is not true. I do want to very quickly go to Darrell Issa, the California Republican House Oversight Judiciary Committee member. We are seeing more such cases or charges of this, Congressman. Does it disturb you?
It does, because when you look at 40-year-old charges, you can say that was yesterday, that was the way it used to be. But when they're current claims, as Congresswoman Spears and others have made, I think they have to be investigated, because we have a standard today that says this is completely unacceptable, and we need to enforce that standard.
But, you know, the charges against Roy Moore you're alluding to earlier about charges that are decades old, they do involve underage girls. If he were to get elected, do you think the Senate, I know this is different, it would be the Senate, should look into that sort of thing, should have investigations into that?
Well, I think there has to be a statute of limitations on any claim, unless it is, in fact, you know, a felony that's still chargeable. And, you know, his is sort of an extreme case of one individual who has made a claim that she was underage. And I don't want to get into that any more than I want to get into Bill Clinton or whether Harry Truman actually pardoned a turkey. I think what we have to do is we have to look and say we have some accusations in real time, both in Hollywood and in Washington, and looking into them causes people to realize this is unacceptable. So the question of whether you look into these high-profile cases is not only the merit, but it's also the signal it sends to the rest of America. And I think that's worthwhile, and I think that's where our emphasis should be. Certainly the House and Senate Ethics Committee need to investigate any current claim.
People are going to look sort of jadedly at all of this, Congress, and say, well, Republican or Democrat, whether it's in Congress or in corporate America or in the media, certainly this place no stranger to these type of allegations. And now the latest developments on Charlie Rose, who's been fired from CBS. What do you make of all this?
Well, I think there's a standard that many people don't realize is in place. I think a lot of people are living in the past, assuming that these rules are not real. But whether it's an off-color joke that offends somebody based on gender or some other differential, or in fact it's unwanted advances, I think we have to get realistic that the standard is what it is. It should be pretty well understood, and it should be enforced. It should be enforced particularly in the workplace. I think when you go out to a bar and somebody says something next to you, that's a different environment. But if you're an employer, I think you have to recognize you have an obligation both in your own conduct and in the conduct of others that work for you. And, you know, I don't see any problem with enforcing it. The House and Senate Ethics Committees need to look at allegations. Hollywood needs to soul search about whether the casting couch is still inappropriately being used.
You know, you're one of the richest United States congressmen. You had a very, very successful business career. There are many in Congress who are saying that maybe it's time for Washington to come up with stiffer penalties, laws, whatever you want to call it, to deal with this sort of thing. What do you think of that?
Well, I think the enforcement of what we have is critical. And anytime that you come to Washington and you say, there's no law and here's a wrong, I think it needs to be considered. But in this case, the termination of employees with severing their contracts and their benefits is certainly important. Members of Congress, there's only been 20 thrown out in our entire nation's history, and 11 were Confederates. So I don't know that we're going to throw a lot out, but investigating and sanctioning, and then perhaps they're not being reelected, is certainly a good start for inappropriate behavior. And I'm not talking about any one member. I'm talking about the institution setting a high standard and being accountable to the public. And I think it's underway. I just hope that people will not dredge up things from the past thinking that's going to make a difference. What's going to make a difference is inappropriate behavior that's going on in the recent past that can be called out and can cause people to change in the current day their behavior.
Right.
And I think that's extremely important that we focus on how we can change the culture.
Congressman.